Welcome to Design Talks Now, where we share what matters most. Hosted by Design Pavilion to keep our conversations going and us connected. I'm Eileen Shaw, producer of Design Pavilion and Design Talks, and this month we're taking a look at parallel creative fields to learn what's on their minds and how they're addressing these challenging times and the many crucial issues we face. Today's relevant Black voices were brought to our attention by Many Hats, a community and resource hub that celebrates and supports nonconformist creative entrepreneurs. Each of our guests are breaking ground in their respective industry: environmental law and policy, design, and publishing. And each are also supporting and inspiring the next generation. This is an intimate conversation between Raya Salter, a climate justice lawyer, activist, consultant, educator, and clean energy law and policy expert. Raya is a member of the New York State Climate Action Council. She's also the lead policy organizer for the New York Renews Climate Justice Coalition. She's written widely on energy policy for leading publications and her own published book, and hosts a #1 YouTube ASMR project. Raya is an adjunct professor of law at Fordham University School of Law. She consults and serves on many boards and environmental policy groups. And Dorcia Kelly of Kell, Miles and Company has a specialty in branding for art, fashion, and design. And over the last 20 years, Dorcia used her design and editorial styling experience to reimagine and produce visual stories that promote brand awareness and growth for brands as varied as Elle, Lancôme Paris, and Renaissance boutique hotels. Skilled in fashion, interior design, and hospitality, she builds brands that attract and retain consumers. And Lorenzo Diggins Jr. is a visual artist of photography and illustration, a creative director, and an art book publisher based in LA. If he's not in pursuit of bringing his own creative endeavors to life, he's usually helping others actualize theirs. As a visual artist, Lorenzo is committed to using his work not only to tell the stories of his subjects, but also to serve as an invitation for viewers to reflect and share their own stories. The common thread woven throughout his work is a deep value in fostering connection among people to create community. Raya, Dorcia, and Lorenzo speak frankly about their career paths, the many hats they wear, and the challenges they face while working to champion in primarily white spaces. So now, let's begin.
The hats that I wear: as a visual artist, specifically photography and illustration, I do creative direction and I also do art book publishing. My creative path has been interesting. My background is actually in fashion. So I went to school for apparel merchandising. My jobs right after college was all based in, my major. I worked for Bloomingdale's, Barney's, Club Monaco, Kids and Men, mostly doing visuals and sales. I launched a menswear line in 2010. It was called The Essential Man. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the old show called How to Make It in America.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was called How to Make It in America. And simultaneously, I was literally living the same exact life where I was working sales at Barney's, creating my line while working on the showroom floor. I had started in 2010, but it wasn't until 2013 when I actually, I would say, officially launched it, this trade show. And I had such a great response. And kind of from there, I had all this momentum. I eventually quit my job, got an office, and I kind of took off. And I was supporting myself and others through this company. That lasted for 2 years where I had so much momentum. And then in 2015, I feel I reached a creative plateau and I started to shift my focus. That's when I started to explore art outside of creating for my company. It started pretty much as a exercise in gratitude because also I was having personal issues. I was in a long relationship and just trying to channel all these things as an exercise in gratitude. I started to draw an illustration of something that brought me joy, a simple thing that brought me joy every day. Long story short, eventually I had maybe like 100 plus illustrations. And I was like, I want to compile them and like kind of create like a book. My first book, it was a compilation of just like my favorite illustrations from that series, and it was called Simple Things. And the intention was to release it on Christmas Day of 2015. It was only supposed to be a one-off. Fast forward, like that project kind of set me on another journey in terms of just like really wanting to explore specifically art book publishing. Now it's 2020. I haven't looked back since. Not only am I still creating my own work and turning them into books, but since then I've also helped several other artists turn their work into books. And it's through my company called Color Block Creative, and then the publishing branch is called CBC Press. It all started with my own work as a visual artist.
Thank you for sharing, Lorenzo. I really enjoyed hearing your path, and your success as an artist is really cool and inspiring to me. I am an energy and climate justice lawyer, activist, teacher, and content creator.
Hawaii is on the front lines of climate change. We need to move to cleaner energy as we see our coastlines eroded and pay high costs for imported fuels.
The community has not been heard, and that we need to have a conversation so that the community these energy systems are going to be in can have a say in how they are impacted by them and have their legitimate questions answered. I actually also have a life like television story, which I'm going to share just because you did. I don't know if folks remember How I Met My Mother, but there's a character on there who is a lawyer who went to Wesleyan University and wanted to be a lawyer for the Natural Resources Defense Council. Just so happens that I went to Wesleyan and was a lawyer for the Natural Resources Defense Council. To the extent that that rings any bells for people, that was like my life-like TV story. So before I went to law school as a single mom, I was a youth worker and a community-based service provider. I went to law school, ended up in the field of energy regulation, and have been doing clean energy advocacy for some time with a focus on energy and climate justice. Right now, I'm the policy organizer with a group called New York Renews, which is a climate and energy justice coalition based in New York. The thing about that, though, and that's why I'm so excited to be on this event with these creative people, is that the power of art, music, culture, and communications, and its role in social change, activism, education, and awareness is just a tremendous passion of mine. So in addition to my activism, or as a part of my activism, I'm also a content creator. I do YouTube videos, and I have also started a new project designed to decrease climate anxiety, which is a lot of people, young people in particular, are very stressed out about the world going to heck in a handbasket, to really put it mildly. And for those who are interested in or find help with ASMR, I am actually YouTube's #1 and only environmental ASMR artist. And I got into it because a friend of mine just confessed to me that my voice was relaxing to her. And sometimes when I talked to her, she actually wasn't paying attention to what I was saying because my voice was putting her to sleep. So I became exposed to this world of ASMR and very quickly got a very enthusiastic following in this sort of relaxing and anxiety reducing way to talk about climate and energy solutions in the context of ASMR.
Hello, I am Sweet Soul Whisper, and I do ASMR related to climate change, positive, hopeful stories and solutions.
ASMR, it's sort of a body response that some, not all, people have to listening to certain types of tones and sounds that can be very relaxing and actually send a tingling sensation sort of around people's heads and neck. And millions of people throughout the world listen and watch ASMR to help them sleep and relax. And actually, some of the top most watched YouTubers are ASMR artists who have multi-million subscriber following. So it's just an innovative niche that I'm hoping to engage folks with, a relaxing way to engage with climate and energy solutions.
My name is Dorcia Kelly of Kelly Mal Design. I started my career in publishing, working for Elle Magazine as a market editor. I did that for 7 years. I guess I want to include what movie my life has been like. Devil Wears Prada times 10, times a million. That was my life. And then I got out of editorial and I got into hospitality, where I was the brand strategist, where literally I would go to hotels and tell the story of the brand throughout 50 hotels for the Renaissance Hotel, Canada and the US. Now I do interior styling. I work with Architectural Digest. Whatever you see in a magazine when it's styled, that's someone like me doing. That's an interior stylist. I started thinking about my career and what I really wanted to do in life. I'm doing everything I want to do, but how can I'm a director of arts and culture for Brooklyn, where I bring artists and brands together to urban underfunded schools. And we provide mentorship. We give them another outlet because in school, the first thing they take out is art. And it's proven that most kids of color learn through art and visualization. So my job is to bring, high-end artists. I had Hugo McLeod come in with Polaroid, and we taught the kids how to shoot with a Polaroid.
The only thing I want you guys to do is I want you guys to pick carefully what you shoot, okay? I want you guys to shoot things that you normally wouldn't find as art or beautiful or like, oh, look at that flower, it's so pretty. No, none of that stuff, okay? We're gonna shoot things that you find, that's something that catches your eye, that you guys find interesting, okay? Because beauty doesn't have to just be something that's attractive, it could also just be interesting. There's a reason why you find it interesting, okay? And that's it. Besides that, have fun with your cameras.
We're trying to get green roofs on all the schools in Brooklyn so they can grow their own food. And a lot of schools, especially in the areas of Bed-Stuy, they do not get funded. It's based on ownerships and taxes and things of that sort. So my whole push is to bring more art into our communities that reflect the people that live in our communities. Community to me is everything. I wouldn't be where I'm at today in my career without community. Community feeds you. It takes a community to raise a child. It takes a community to get people going, because this world could be very harsh. The way I was raised, it was all about community. Even when I came and worked for Elle magazine, I had a community of mentors and things of that nature to help me move forward in my career. So community is very important to me. And I also feel that it's people like us as we get older to help out the younger kids that's behind us, but also have a helping hand to people our age, because it takes a community to heal this world. And I think that's what sometimes people forget. They think me, instead of this is our community, this is our earth, how can we make it better?
Building off of what Dorcia said, I think a lot about like communities of activists. I think a lot about how, especially in the climate and energy space, but in general, Black people, we need to build community together and build our own power and center ourselves in particular in climate justice related issues. I refuse to let my life of advocacy be about battling white liberal environmentalists for a microphone or input, and how important it is for us to build community where we do exactly what she said, which is build each other up, lift each other up, and of all ages is very important and there should always be a youth focus. Yet so often, a lot of these youth initiatives are really like one-way trips off a cliff because there's no real glide path towards a real career or a life of success at a good wage to support a life, a community, and family. It's like walking off a plank so often. And so we have to reduce invisibility amongst Black creators at all levels of success and work to center ourselves and build each other up.
Today, it means just a place where I feel safe, and not only physically, but just a place where I can be myself. And I think a big part of like my work is creating that environment for others. A big part of my work is kind of like a bridge to creating community, or at the very least, sparking conversation. Simply put, like it's really just a place where I feel safe and where others feel safe. And that can be established anywhere, I think. Some of the challenges that I face, specifically design and just art, is just the lack of resources and access. Because I'm self-taught, just the barrier to entry has kind of been kind of vast because there's so many things that I don't know, especially with publishing, in the publishing space. The lack of representation. I go to all these book fairs, and it's very seldom that I see publishers of color. I'm wearing a shirt that says Black Publishers Matter. Made this shirt in 2018 when I was participating in all these art book fairs, where it was like just no representation. it can be discouraging because it's a space where I see a need for change, but because there's no one before me, it's kind of harder on how to go about change. So I'm kind of like figuring things out as I go, essentially. A motto that I live by is like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. So that's kind of it. Like, it's definitely a longer road travel because it's a lot of trial and error. And I think having someone to kind of ask questions and bounce ideas off with could be helpful, but because there is a lack of representation, it's kind of like trailblazing like my own path, which can be lonely sometimes.
I agree with what he said. I think the majority of us, especially our generation, we are either first or second generation that went to college, moved out of our state and did our thing. And this me growing up from the South, my family always taught me you can do anything and be anything you want. And it's like a bubble bust when you really get into the real world. Because you're taught to, as long as you work hard, you can do anything. So that's how you live. And I went to a HBCU, so that was like gung-ho. And then you get into these environments. Now, I've been very blessed. And I have worked for all the Ivy League companies out there. And most of these companies, it's all blue bloods. I was always the only Black. It makes you, when you're young, you feel like you have to assimilate sometimes. And you don't know better, but in my career, like when I was like 21 working for a magazine, I felt like I had to assimilate. Like I wanted to wear my hair in a fro and things of that sort. And that can really trigger things in you. But then as you get older, you realize your power, your history, where you come from. So you get really confident because, hey, I know how to do this too. And the people around me, I'm just as smart as them. So I feel like it hindered me in a way where I was the only Black, but I was very vocal. Like one time my boss told me, I said, why you don't have any Black people on the cover of the magazine? And he was like, girl, they're not pretty enough. The next day I bought him a stack of magazines with Black women on it. I said, here you go. This is proven. So I'm that girl. Because I feel like sometimes you got to be that voice because somebody was that voice for you before you came along. It's been hard, but to tell you the truth, I feel like if you're open, especially if you're well-traveled, if you've been around the world and you did things, like people will really see your talent. But it's just like he said, it's a very lonely place. You feel like you're the only person. I will go on shoots and want to see a Black person for 3 weeks. As soon as I see an African, I'm like, hello, how you doing? And he's like, you're American. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. In corporate America, and you know that even when you're going for your freelance gigs or whatever gig, it's like, they only gonna have one Black. So you're telling your friends, okay, you apply, I apply, one of us gonna apply because when we get in, we're gonna help you get in. And it's really sad because I don't think sometimes people understand that they're doing it. Like when you go on a set, everyone is the same color. And that really never clicked to me. Like, we're in America. You should have all cultures, all colors. It's everybody from different backgrounds working because you get the greatest ideas like that. Unfortunately, I have worked for European companies that feel that way sometimes. So that's my journey in that.
I definitely experienced the same issues in terms of being the first and only in my field, in my case, at environmental advocacy organizations, especially as an attorney doing energy advocacy or in the energy field. I'll bring that intersectional twist to it because it's also very male dominated. I also definitely vibe with what I heard to be like the authenticity that Dorcia was, issues that Dorcia was alluding to in terms of when it's okay to be unapologetic, to let your hair squiggle. Because I got my training in a law firm. I was doing energy regulation and energy mergers and acquisitions transactions. You would not recognize me from those pictures. I was like, if it was going to rain, then that was like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And it was emphasized by like the one like Black woman partner would be like, I see your hair is frizzen, or I hear you playing Black music, after hours, you're there till 10 p.m., but other people are in the office, so you need to turn down your like Anita Baker or whatever. So just being able to sort of be yourself. And really, as a creator, in terms of the climate justice environmental movement, it's exactly what I'm hoping to do is leverage folks like both of you who are doing art and community, because this issue of climate change and justice is about us. And all of the communications that I do is to try and reach out to diverse audiences about, hopefully in fun and engaging and relaxing ways to identify with the cause, because it really is about us. We're the ones who are facing climate destruction first.
So on one end, it's the effect of like the social justice and the Black Lives Matter. One of the positive effects is that seemingly people's ears are opening and their eyes are actually open now to like some of the things that has been happening. Unfortunately for me, I am a Black male. So like a lot of this stuff, it's life. Like I'm used to some of the things that non-Black people are becoming more privy to. It's my reality. I think one of the better things is that there's conversation that's happening. My only hope is that the conversation extends beyond this moment and that like once things seemingly go back to normal, that it's still a priority in terms of just like racial inequality and social justice. Like I hope that that's still a priority amongst some of like the bigger companies on their agenda. I think one of the ways that it has affected me is that now I'm getting opportunities, and that part of it is bittersweet because I haven't changed. It's just now I'm more visible. And I hope that once this moment passes, because it's going to pass and then it's going to be a new thing, some of the initiatives that was started because of this moment continues. And I think a sentiment that a lot of African Americans share is that this notion of like handouts, like I don't think any of us want handouts. The thing is just opportunity. And now that the opportunities are coming, I don't know if they would have came if it wasn't because of like this magnifying glass. Past this moment, I hope that the fight of like inequality remains the same.
I definitely hear and feel that vibe in terms of like, why now? Why do you care now? Are you going to care tomorrow? Is this something that people are trading off of and is going to go away? We are in the midst of a great Black rising for liberation, and I am here for it. I'm here for any handout. If you would like to Venmo me, you can pay Black women now. That is fine by me. However, I understand what you mean in terms of like, I feel like I put more pressure on myself to try and be like, to be the best and to earn opportunities. And I'm very happy and grateful that eyes do seem to be opening and there does seem to be some daylight for more voices like my co-panelists. So I'm very excited about that. And I do believe we're in a great rising for Black liberation, and it's beyond my IG like exploration of the Black liberation flag and all the other things. But I do feel that BLM is both, as folks know, very difficult and stressful to deal with. The images that we're seeing and the pain and the tumult. It's difficult and stressful to feel like you are or aren't doing enough or are or aren't participating enough in the right ways, because we all are trying to do this activism as we can. We're in quarantine. It's ridiculous. So there's that stress and trauma that is happening around this movement. And that's, again, why I focus on coming together in our own power, because if we focus on this rising for Black liberation, I love saying that. I never thought in my lifetime I would be saying something like that. And part of me feels like everyone from the person who spoke up before in that corporate situation and had to deal with that backlash so that I could speak up, which was what you said, which meant something to me because it's so hard to speak up in these situations, to our ancestors, to the people who've been murdered by the police and others. I'm going to say these things. I'm not going to be apologetic about talking about this rising for Black liberation, the need for Black power building, and for Black centering.
I'm glad it's going on because it's actually showing our culture. It's showing who we are. It's showing how artistic we are. It's so funny because people are like, oh my God, I can't believe what's happening. And Black people are just looking like, child, this has been going on forever. It's just being videotaped. And I say that in my sister girl moment because it's like, to us, it's like Lorenzo said, this is normal for us. Like, he's a Black man walking around. I couldn't even imagine that. I'm a Black woman. So it's like, we've been dealing with this forever. You know, I was talking to my grandmother about this. She was like, oh, y'all got it kind of easy. And it's sad to say, but it's reality. But I love what it's doing in the art world because, you know, it's a lot of great artists out there that's actually painting about the Black life, regular life. Like Kerry James Marshall, he have a painting with Black people in a picnic, and people are like, wow, this is great. And it's like, we're human beings. We're just like you. We're human beings. So for the art world and just the fashion and interior, for a world that I don't see a lot of people of color in, it's liberating, but then it's like people are calling you and you don't know whether to take the job because they're like, are you looking for a Black voice just to have a Black person? You know, you see all these magazine editors getting editor-in-chief and they're Black and they're voicing their opinion, but it's like, who's who's in power? Who has the decision power? It should be people of color, you know? I shouldn't have to flip through a home decor magazine and not see one Black, Asian, Latino in there, because we have beautiful homes too. With my career, my job, tell you the truth, I've been getting more jobs, and it's really from Black folks calling me. Like, a lot of Black folks are calling me, and a lot of friends that have their own businesses. Like, my friend owns a flower company. A lot of white people have been calling her because they want to see what they can do. They want to send flowers. They want to use a Black company. You want to get a job based on your credentials. Like, I'm good, but it's like, finally they're noticing me. But in our heads, and I think it's in most Black people's head, is like, how long is this going to last? How long are they going to hire one more Black person? Because now it's 2. So is this going to last? Because I'm very good at what I do. So it's empowering, being that I think it's encouraging more people of color to start their own businesses, to celebrate ourselves, giving our kids that anthem, like, we're Black, we're proud, and we can do anything. And it's people like us that get supported, you know?
Sometimes, like, one side, like, wants to be bitter. It's hard for me, so I'm not going to help. But then the other side is, like, I've leaned in. Is like, for everyone that comes after me, I want them to have a different experience. Just kind of like the people that came before me. It was always about, like, leaving the door a little bit open so it could be easier for them to come in. So I say that to say that, like, I literally just became a mentor for part of this organization called AAC, which is the Arts Administrators of Color. I discovered it because they was offering a grant. I applied for the grant, didn't get it, but then I saw a link to become a mentor. So I'm like, you know, I'm spiritual. So, like, I think the real reason why I was led to this, just to actually become a mentor. Actually, last week I had my first mentor-mentee meeting. She's a young lady named Desiree Lee, so I'm going to shout her out. And the reason why I became a mentor is for that exact reason, because I know that my journey hasn't been easy by a long shot. I've learned so much along the way through trial and error. And if I can just help the next person have it a little bit easier, or just help them expedite their journey to whatever it is that they want to do, I want to be able to do that. And I think especially amongst African Americans, that's something that's always been in our DNA. The whole idea of, like, it takes a village to raise a child or whatever. I think we've always had mentorship. It may not have been in that field, but at least someone that you can ask and answer a question, you know? So
I think mentorship is very important, especially if people are in industries that do not have a lot of people that look like them. I wasn't fortunate enough to have a mentor that looked like me. It was really no one. And then when you did find someone, sad to say, it was like, oh no, I'm going to be the only person of color and a woman. So that's why it's so important to me. Seek out those people that look like you and help them along the way, because most of my mentors were like in church, or, you know, someone that was successful, but they didn't know what I was going through from the level, like, you know, I was literally, my life was a Devil Wears Prada. And my mom, my aunts, they could not comprehend that. They can't comprehend people getting treated a certain way. Like, that should be illegal. Like, so it's good to have someone to mentor you, regardless of what color, if it's no one that looks like you. But as you grow, I think you should seek out people that look like you, because they're going to tell you things that other people want. Like, I have a mentor, she's a white lady, and she's amazing. I call her Harriet Tubman. She is just, it's crazy. Like, she's giving reparations away. It's so funny. But the point I'm saying is, she took time out. She is, girl. She is. I was like, you want to pay my rent this month? It's a lot. She is. But the point I'm saying is, it's always important to look for people that's in your industry that look like you, to pull them up and to tell them the things that another mentor probably won't tell you if they didn't look like you. That's just the reality of the situation. But it's so important to me, and I always encourage people to do it, especially in the arts. You know, I have so many schools in Brooklyn, and these kids, they starve for it. They're looking for that. Their parents are working all these jobs. They're looking for someone to pay them attention and to help them realize that they're not alone in this world. So mentorship is everything.
Certainly, as somebody who is focused on justice and equity in the energy and climate space, and it's not that many of me, as you know, we've been struggling mightily, and then this has ignited more interest, and I have gotten tremendous amounts of interest from all corners, and some people have done it well, and some people have not. And the difference is when you are coming at someone seeking to be extractive, meaning you are coming to them and asking them for their expertise and time for free, somebody for little or nothing in return and are looking to put them forward, not to forward substantively what they are saying or to uplift their voice or listen to what they have to say, but instead to check a box and performatively look like you about something when you're not, versus coming at somebody with honesty, respect, offering them money for their time, being sure to offer some type of actual upliftment, publicity, notice, PR, substantive assistance, understanding that when you ask people for their opinions, for their image, for access to their networks, you are getting value and you have to return that value intentionally and in kind. And that could even mean saying to somebody, what do you need from me? What can I do for you? And allowing feedback from the situation, because people are out here being extractive and it's ridiculous. And people are out here being helpful and it's a blessing.
I noticed a lot of companies and brands hiring people of color for diversity and inclusion. I think it has to go beyond that. It needs to go to hiring people of color in HR and also on your board and also in those rooms where they make decisions. It's really disheartening, but sometimes I feel maybe it's naive. But then I think about it, well, I went to school. They shouldn't be that naive. But then reality, people really don't know. So it's about educating people, but also having someone in the company that can help them with what they're doing. I mean, that's the only advice I can give.
One of the passion projects that I'm working on right now is an actual publication exploring inner peace. It's combining all the things that you just spoke about, and it's called Find Peace, Keep Peace. It is a collaborative project, but it's a continuation of a single project that I did on my own. And the name of that project was called 21 Days of Peace. Self-care is like a buzzword right now. For me, I wanted to be collaborative and it was inspired by my own mental health journey. I started doing therapy 3.5 years ago. And the whole purpose for that was just to kind of end some generational traumas, because I've seen the power of just my own development. With this project, I want to create space for other people to kind of just have exposure through a more organic way and then not seem performative, or also there's no authoritative voice. It's just really people sharing experiences. It's not trying to profit or, off wellness. That's a passion project that I'm working on. The goal is to release it this winter. I was actually supposed to release it this April at the LA Art Book Fair. Of course, that was canceled. And then I was going to put it out digitally because of COVID and just kind of it felt insensitive. I didn't want to be marketing something and then all the social injustice stuff started happening. Mm-hmm. I say that to say that the first issue has changed a couple of times. Now I'm set a hard date and I'm just working towards it now.
Climate justice is the principle that those who have done the most to create the devastating impacts of climate change are actually the ones who will experience its impacts the least. And those who have done the least to contribute to climate change are experiencing its impacts first and worst. That is Black and Indigenous people, children, and also women. From that intersectional lens, we're talking about BIPOC people who are experiencing both the impacts of pollution in terms of causing asthma, double down on that with COVID. We all know that if you breathe bad air, it's one of those factors in the reasons why Black people have been dying disproportionately of COVID and other environmental injustice. In addition to when the hurricanes come and the waters rise, we are the ones who are losing the most right now. We are the ones who have done the least to contribute to the problem. That is a legacy injustice. That's a problem. And beyond that legacy injustice, we need to speak for ourselves and center ourselves and advocate for ourselves in the context of this problem. We are all in this fight together, no matter what stripe or color that you are. And I want to encourage everybody to care about climate. And I also think that zero waste, all these other elements that have a very, tang of seeming privilege, they are also issues that belong to all of us. And I encourage everybody to double down on it. We need to make sure that everybody is pulling in the same direction so we can get out of this mess, including those who are most affected. In my day job, I do advocacy and organizing around these issues and around climate and energy justice policy. On YouTube, I do videos on emergency preparedness. And so the idea is that it's a different type of voice, as opposed to, which is a lot of times you'll see somebody like a guy, in a bunker, seems real scary. Usually is a white guy. Who would identify with that? I do videos about, sis, did you get your emergency lighting together? Sis, do you have your solar thing so that you'll be able to charge your phone in an emergency? Have you thought about making sure that your COVID and disaster pantry includes flavor and seasoning? You don't want to be without that in the dark. Little things like that. And also on Instagram, I tend to do more educational videos that are a little bit more about my direct advocacy, like say, bottled water is trash and here's why type thing. So I enjoy this creative messaging, but also I think it's very serious and important.
What we're facing right now with COVID going on in these schools is the DOE, they don't know what they're doing. So like a lot of these kids in these underprivileged areas, they don't have computers. They barely have Wi-Fi. So most people are sending buses out that have Wi-Fi so the kids can connect and things of that nature. But it really handicaps the children in these low income communities. And the sad part about it all is they're going to get left behind. Most of them doing homeschooling and most of their parents are essential workers. They're at work. So a kid is literally on the computer by themselves. So now de Blasio's having the kids go back to school, but it's like, is it safe for them to go back to school? Kids like to touch each other. They do things off their emotions. And how are we going to practice that? Has it been in the videos? I mean, it's a big mess and it has affected me. Whereas for the art community, it seems like the art people are doing very well. The artists and things of that sort, they're getting booked. Paintings are being sold. The Black man's story, the Black woman's story is selling through the roof. But what's happening is the kids are being left out. And one reason why I chose to do this, not only because I like arts and culture, but most of the people that make it in America come from nothing. They come from nothing. And they succeeded. I always say to kids, like, they're like, well, I'm born here. Why can't I be this and that? God put you here to endure for a reason because He know you can overcome it. You know what I mean? And most of the people that make very impactful things in history are people that come from these areas. So that's why I encourage people to volunteer. If you want to donate money to organizations that do things in these schools, that do things for these kids in these communities, because half the time these kids get left out and some of them succeed, but a lot of them don't. So that's why I'm very passionate. No one was ready for COVID, but we can't depend on the government to rescue or help our kids because basically sometimes I think it's so corrupt. That's why I say it's a community. Volunteer at the school, help this kid out. If his parents is going to work as a bus driver, sit with that kid while they're in school. If they don't have Wi-Fi, do something. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because these kids are the ones that's going to make our world a better place. I tell people that all the time. It's always that quiet kid that come from nothing. I said, that kid is the one that's going to make it out. A rose can grow from concrete, as they always say.
I'm going to quote a musician. His name is Dom Kennedy. He's from Leimert Park, where I reside right now. And simply put, theirs ain't got nothing to do with yours. And I think that's what I would tell myself. I think growing up, especially, I kind of feel for a lot of the kids today, just in terms of just like all the things they have to filter. They're constantly being reminded that they're not good enough because they're either comparing to the next person. I'm only 32. My generation was like the first part of like this era. Me growing up was like the earlier parts of just like social media and everything. And I think a lot of the first part of like my entrepreneurship journey, I did a lot of comparing. And I think that's ultimately how I kind of burned out with my company when I made that career pivot. But I think a big part of it was because I was always comparing my journey to the next person and not even considering context or whatever. Like, this person may have literally had the red carpet lined up for them, and I'm comparing my journey to there. So I think the one thing I would do is just tell my younger self is not to compare, or theirs ain't got nothing to do with yours. The moments when I just kind of honed in and kind of just focused on my craft and just allow my craft to speak for itself, or just to kind of just get better and put focus on my craft and not worrying about someone else's. I think those are the times when I saw the most impact. Another thing that I go by is just better with time. As long as I'm getting better with time, I may not have that breakout or that moment that I envision, but as long as I'm getting better with time, that's a success. So I have a sister. My sister is 14 years younger than me. So she's like a totally different generation. She's starting her first year of college. A couple of years ago, she started a YouTube channel. She was editing these amazing videos. She was doing like makeup tutorials and reviews. She's very talented. The videos she was creating with her iPad. And one of the things that I told her is don't pay attention to the numbers. And I think because it's always this emphasis on like following, the subscribers and all these things, and that can deter you from actually getting better at your craft. She was doing these amazing videos, but they weren't getting views. And fast forward, she doesn't do them anymore. But I think a big part of it is because she got caught up in the views and not actually honing in on her craft. Jay-Z said, numbers don't lie. I would contest that numbers do lie, because sometimes these numbers are spiked. It doesn't actually mean real engagement. It doesn't mean all the things that they place value on. It's not an indication of how good you are. I just want to say that, like, don't pay attention to the numbers and really just continue to hone in on your craft or your purpose or message, whatever that thing is. Be steadfast and hone in on that and not the optics or the perception of it.
The thing that jumps out right now is don't be so hard on yourself to have to be perfect all the time and take all the responsibility and of everything that's happening to you and internalize it. Try and chill with that. Try and chill with having to be perfect. Try and chill with letting yourself have some fun. And then allow yourself to have the patience to start, especially in the artistic things I've done, to start and actually give them the time to build over time. You know, that whole thing about how you see the iceberg and you see the top of the iceberg and it looks like all the success and then all that really went into it. There's this idea that like you're gonna pop and like Hollywood's gonna just come to you, and you know that can happen for some people, and like God bless them if they do. But then to take that patience and let something build and pay attention to the quality of what you're doing and developing your own skills, because you are responsible for developing your own skill set and focus, and letting things build over time, and understand that to everything there is a season. You may have no job. You may have the hardest job in the world. You may have your dream job. All of these things, you're still building and building and building towards what you ultimately want to be.
You know, I'm going to first start off by saying this, and this is how it's raised. I call it the Negro spiritual. Lessons come from God and not man. And that's what I live by. So I would tell my younger self to be 100% you, you know, because all the jobs I got was being who I am, because you are perfectly made. So that's one thing. Number two, don't be so hard on yourself, because I think we are, as human beings, is hard on ourselves, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're doing so many things. And number three is just, baby, it's going to be all right. My grandma said, baby, it's going to be all right. And that's the third thing, because in the end, it's going to be all right. If you're a good person and you give good energy and you give back to the community, you pay it forward, it's going to be all right. So that's the only thing I'd say when I was young, because I was crazy when I was young in New York. Running around, trying to hustle. Yes. It's very important to try to use your craft to uplift the community. A friend of mine, she has an organization where she helped formerly incarcerated women. And I decorate and design the homes that the women come home to as the halfway house. I always believe that women, like not women, but everyone should be surrounded by beauty, because I think it encourages you. It makes you feel better about yourself. You know, you've been in jail in a box and the gray walls and yellow walls. Oh, do y'all know that the same color that they use in prisons, they use in schools in New York? The same color. By providing a beautiful space for these women, decorating the home they go to is very fulfilling. So I really encourage everyone to use your creative skills, whatever you do, to do little things like that, because you can make a world of a difference in a person's life. Beauty is so capturing. And kids love it. That's why kids are so in tune to art. It makes them feel better about themselves.
I think that's true. And the last thing I would just say, like, hey, please support, environmental and climate and energy education for the young folks, for people of all ages. Let's kind of like share this knowledge. It's not about for one person, it's for all of us. Please support that and get involved in these issues too. If you're in New York, New Yorker News is a good place to look. Check out Energy Justice on Twitter, Climate Justice on Twitter. Get in community however you can during this pandemic. Support climate and environmental justice, racial and social justice, and climate and environmental education, including the fun stuff that I do on Instagram and YouTube. Thank you, Design Talks Now.
Thank you, Dorcia, Raya, and Lorenzo, for your generosity in sharing and making your voices heard. We're listening. And thanks to Dorcia's grandmother for her wisdom. It is going to be all right. In fact, it's going to be better than all right. It's up to all of us. We send gratitude to all of you for joining us. Enlightenment and systemic change takes a community. So please mentor the next generation to ensure a different experience for them and help to create a platform on which they can make a better world. Design Talks Now continues with a great lineup for fall, so please stay tuned. And remember, stay safe, stay smart. Design stands together.